Hey everybody, Sawyer here, and I'm here with a review for The Batman Who Laughs, featuring the Grim Knight, #1. This is basically a one-shot spin-off from the Batman Who Laughs comic book series. It does kind of continue the story of the Batman Who Laughs, as far as I'm aware, because I haven't actually read that series. But this does feel like it's kind of in the middle of a story, so there's that, to keep that in mind. I don't like. The only reason why I really picked this up is because I don't really have like much of an attachment to the Batman Who Laughs or anything, and I haven't read anything about the Dark Knight's Metal storyline. Even though I do like the idea of like a bunch of different alternate versions of Batman, because I am a big fan of like what ifs and Elseworld stories. So when I heard there was a Batman who's essentially the Punisher, essentially a Batman who became more brutal and was fighting criminals with the same brutality and using guns and like doesn't have a no kill rule. I thought that was really cool. We've seen it a couple times, but I just I love the Punisher as a character, so I thought this would be a really interesting mix of the two ideologies. And for the most part, it's a pretty good book. You don't really need to know too much about Dark Knight's Metal because I don't really know anything, and I was still able to kind of totally understand this book. Uh, there's a few things that like few small details about like the Batman Who Laughs plan that I don't really have the pieces to, but that was fine. I'm sure it's not all that important because this is mostly a flashback story, like an origin story for the Grim Knight, and that's really where the meat of the book lies, and it's pretty cool. I'm gonna try not to spoil any. I don't really like to spoil stuff when I do comic book reviews. So I'm gonna keep. So this video will probably be pretty short because the nature of this book, there's really not a whole lot to talk about without spoiling stuff. Because most of the book is basically a flashback story, and it's the classic Batman story, but there are very key differences. So it's kind of hard to really get to talk about that stuff without spoiling it. So. But I do like how the book kind of changes art style whenever we in the flashbacks. So we go back and forth between flashbacks, origin story to present day, and I really do like the art change. I really like the art in the flashbacks a lot more actually because it's a more painted, more grim. Like the colors are more a lot less saturated. It's a lot more. They just feel like darker colors. All the characters are drawn in a more I don't know. It's hard to explain, but they're drawn in a more grim way, like a more there's more wear and tear to the characters, especially like Jim Gordon in the flashbacks. He looks like he's a guy that's been through the gutter a few times, and I really appreciate that attention to detail within this art style. I don't know who did the art for these flashbacks, but they're pretty good. I like it. And I also like the callbacks to like old school Batman stuff. Like in this picture here, we can see that classic image of like the Batman Year One, where a young Bruce Wayne is kicking a tree and breaking it, which, by the way, is totally unlogical. Like, how the hell does a normal person break a tree with one kick? I never understood that. But regardless, I really appreciate them adding in here and kind of like mixing it into the narrative of the Batman of the Grim Knight. A lot of the flashbacks are focused around Batman's kind of rise to power and his war against crime, which is actually very quick and very one-sided. I love the idea that since he doesn't have the no-kill rule, he can take out his enemies much more. He can be much more efficient at the idea of taking out the trash. Like they even make a point of like referencing that this Batman has never faced all these colorful villains like the Joker or Penguin or anything, because he's taken them out before they had the chance to really turn into their colorful, dramatic, versions of themselves. Like he doesn't have all these flashy villains because he doesn't give them their chance to become that. He just takes them out whenever they're petty criminals. Like they referenced that he killed a guy in a red hood one time, but he's never met the Joker. So implying that he takes out the trash before they get the chance to become iconic, and all that, which I thought was pretty cool. It's very interesting just how fast he's able to stabilize and take over the city essentially, which just kind of empathizes the classic argument that Batman would have in the stories where it's too easy to go that route. That route would solve a lot of problems and would probably save a lot of lives, but it wouldn't be the right way to do it. It wouldn't make his parents proud, and it would cause its own kind of pitfalls, and I appreciate it. Gordon is essentially the villain of this story, or the hero, depending on how you look at it. I look at it as he's the hero, but each their own. Uh, he's trying to stop Batman. He's trying to, arrest him, give him you know, take him out the right way. Unlike what Batman is doing, and it's really interesting to see how much effort. It's really interesting to see how that dynamic has changed. They're not working together. They're not allies. They don't have that same, insight into the world. They're totally opposite sides of the spectrum here, which correlates to the present day story where, the Grim Knight is pushing Gordon around. They don't reveal it's Gordon for a little while, but it's Gordon. If you're familiar with the character, you can tell by the dialogue that the guy is saying with the hood on his head. You can also tell from the clothes he's wearing that it's obviously Gordon. So it really is interesting that the Grim Knight is trying to kind of reason with Gordon. He's trying to make our Gordon to see that he's right. That his method, the Grim Knight's method, is the right way to do it, and it's really interesting. It basically turns into a lot of ideology, battles of belief systems and stuff. In closing, I thought this was a pretty good book. It wasn't as good as I was hoping it to be. I had a lot more excitement for it and expectation for it than what it actually delivered. Mostly because there's not as much action as I thought there would be. There's not as much Batman going full Punisher, just mowing people down as I thought there would be. The flashbacks don't really empathize that as much. Most of his kills come from him just blowing stuff up or having these implants in people. And that's cool and all, but I was kind of hoping for a little bit more gunplay, which was a little disappointing because it's the Grim Knight. They show that he carries all kinds of assault rifles on him, but it's still a solid story. The pacing is pretty good. I really enjoy the flashbacks. I love the art style when it changes to the flashbacks. But in the end, it is kind of an average book with not a whole lot of action. I feel like if you're a Batman fan, or if you're a Punisher fan, or if you're both, you will love this book. And it will, it would definitely scratch an itch for you if you've always wondered what it would be like if Batman just, if he just snapped, if he just decided that his honor code doesn't work, it's not the right thing to do, or it's not going to be the most effective thing to do. This book is definitely for you. Then it's I enjoyed it, but like I said, I was just a little disappointed because I was expecting more action. I was expecting more gunfight, gunplay. I was expecting the Grim Knight to do more. He was more in this story. He was more of just a mastermind, putting things in motion. He wasn't really doing hands-on as much as I was hoping. But overall, it was a pretty good book, and thank you guys for watching.